All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking one of the most heartbreaking events in Pakistan's aviation history. We're going to break down the exact second-by-second mechanical sequence that brought down a commercial airliner in the rugged northern mountains. This isn't just a story about a crash, guys. It's a gripping, technical autopsy of a totally unprecedented anomaly that completely blindsided a highly experienced crew. 15. That is the number we're focusing on today. On December 7, 2016, a flight that started off perfectly normal turned into an unfathomable catastrophe in exactly 15 minutes. To understand how a totally routine journey ended in tragedy, we really have to look closely at the mechanics, the physics, and the terrifying chain reaction of failures that happened inside the aircraft during this exact window of time. Section 1. A routine winter flight. The journey from Chitral to Islamabad. So this was supposed to be a quick 40-minute hop out of the remote mountainous region of Chitral. On this specific day, there were 47 souls on board. That included prominent figures like the pop icon turned religious scholar Junaid Jamshed and Chitral's deputy commissioner Osama Warach. But I really want to highlight the crew here. Captain Jamshed wasn't just your average pilot. He was an actual ATR instructor with over 12,000 hours of flight time under his belt. In aviation, investigators usually look at human error first. But with a crew this incredibly seasoned, a rookie mistake seemed highly unlikely. Let's trace how this flight actually started. At 3:38 p.m., flight PK61 takes off smoothly from runway 20. By 3:45, they're comfortably cruising at 13,500 feet, safely weaving above the valleys. And for the first half hour, everything is perfectly calm. You know, that comfortable false sense of security totally settles over the cabin. Then, at 4:10 p.m., after being in the air for about 32 minutes, Captain Jamshed turns off the seatbelt sign and starts his routine passenger announcement. Section 2, the first warning light. It's 4:10 p.m. at 13,375 feet. Literally mid-sentence through that routine announcement, everything changes. A sudden warning light flashes in the cockpit for the PEC, or the propeller electronic control. Basically, this is the brain that balances how fast the propellers spin with the actual power coming from the engines. The pilots immediately jump into a standard engine reset, but the black box recorded something absolutely terrifying. The power output of the left engine violently dropped from 75% straight down to 0. Section 3. The fatal propeller drag. An unprecedented aerodynamic failure. So with 0% power, that left engine is entirely dead, and this bizarre, awful noise starts echoing through the cockpit. Now, in a normal twin-engine failure, pilots rely on a safety trick called feathering. When an engine dies, its propeller basically turns into a massive wind blocker. By feathering, the blades, which just means turning them parallel to the airflow, they stop spinning. That drastically cuts down the air resistance and lets the plane glide safely on the one good engine. That's the textbook response, and it was Captain Jamshd's immediate next move. But here is where physics completely betrayed them. Normally, those blades would angle straight and just stop rotating. Instead, PK661 experienced this crazy mechanical anomaly. The left propeller absolutely refused to feather. The blades caught the oncoming wind and actually started spinning 120% faster than normal. That failed engine essentially transformed into a massive, solid wall of drag. To really picture what massive drag does to a plane in the sky, imagine you're driving down the highway at top speed, and suddenly you just slam the brakes on only the left tires of your car. What's going to happen? The vehicle is going to violently swerve to the left. That is exactly what happened to PK661. The intense drag aggressively yanked the nose of the plane leftward. And to fight it, Captain Jamshed had to apply full right aileron, literally steering the yoke entirely to the right just to keep the plane flying somewhat straight. But here's the catch. Fighting that much drag totally drains the aircraft's momentum. The plane's speed started bleeding off incredibly fast, pushing them dangerously close to their stall speed. If you're not familiar, stall speed is the absolute minimum velocity a plane needs for its wings to keep generating lift. Drop below it, the plane essentially becomes a falling brick. So to prevent a deadly stall, the captain pushed that one working right engine to its absolute maximum, 100% power. Section 4. The 24-second barrel roll, a sudden aerodynamic snap. So the crew is wrestling with a plane that's desperately trying to rip itself to the left, and then a totally shocking change catches them off guard. Let's break down the timeline of how this actually played out. At second 0, that terrifying left propeller drag inexplicably vanishes, and the prop briefly goes back to normal. But remember, the captain is currently applying maximum right steering just to keep them straight. So at second 1, with that left resistance suddenly gone, that massive right steering instantly takes over. By second 5, the aircraft violently snaps into a 90-degree right barrel roll. It took the pilots 24 agonizing seconds of fighting those controls to finally force the aircraft level again. 5,100. During those 24 seconds of pure aerodynamic chaos, the plane plummeted down to an altitude of just 5,100 feet. That sudden, violent roll was the first massive physical shock to the flight, and the cockpit voice recorder captured the traumatized crew screaming as the plane literally fell from the sky. Section 5, the final Mayday call, the return of the drag. Miraculously, they managed to level the plane out, but that relief was incredibly short-lived. That deadly left propeller drag suddenly returned with a vengeance, and this time they had totally exhausted their altitude. Realizing there was no way they'd make it to Islamabad, the crew frantically radioed air traffic control. Pakistan 661, Pakistan 661, Pakistan 661. That chilling Mayday call was their very last transmission. The plane was now crawling at a dangerously slow 289 kilometers per hour, barely hundreds of meters above the ground, and directly in their path was a mountain. Those final moments were just a harrowing battle between human desperation and inevitable physics. The pilots threw the plane into a full right turn, desperately trying to dodge the mountain and fight that pulling drag. But the aircraft's physics took over. That sharp maneuver bled off whatever speed they had left, dropping them decisively below stall speed. The wings lost all lift. With the terrain and stall alarms blaring, the aerodynamic controls became entirely useless. At 4:15 p.m., the plane nosedived directly into the Havelian Mountains. Section 6. Uncovering the fatal flaw. The post-crash investigation. There were no survivors. It took until the next evening just to recover victims from wreckage that was scattered over 2 kilometers. Now, in the immediate aftermath, management theories naturally kind of leaned toward human error, subtly suggesting that maybe the highly experienced captain made a fatal mistake. However, French experts from Airbus and ATR were flown in to examine the debris, and the physical evidence they meticulously collected completely cleared the pilots. It pointed instead to a deeply hidden, catastrophic mechanical failure. So the crucial point is this highly specific, unforgiving sequence of events. First, investigators found out that an unnoticed crack had developed in the left propeller long before the flight even took off. Second, mid-flight, that compromised propeller finally broke, causing a massive weight imbalance that violently vibrated the entire engine. Third, those extreme vibrations literally shattered an internal seal, flooding the engine's sensitive oil system with tiny metal shards. And finally, those metal fragments traveled through the system and perfectly jammed the overspeed governor, the exact part responsible for controlling the propeller's speed and allowing it to feather. It was a perfect storm of mechanical breakdown. The investigation ultimately revealed a massive systemic failure. It wasn't pilot error at all. The report cited neglected maintenance by the airline and weak oversight by the Civil Aviation Authority. Basically, a plane with a dangerously cracked propeller was technically unfit to fly, but it was permitted into the air anyway. Following these findings, the government immediately grounded the entire fleet of ATR aircraft for rigorous top-to-bottom safety inspections. There's a really heartbreaking twist of irony here, too. This devastating crash happened on December 7th, International Civil Aviation Day, a day globally dedicated to celebrating aviation safety. A single, microscopic, overlooked crack set off a chain reaction that completely overpowered one of the most experienced pilots in the country. It really forces us to ask, when human lives are suspended tens of thousands of feet in the air, just how foolproof is the system that oversees our skies? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.